everyone, recently I talked about Skyrim Together in a video that was originally just going to be about Open Morrowind's Test 3MP multiplayer mod. My reasoning for bringing up Skyrim Together was to kind of shoo away all the people who kept asking my opinion on the project. I got a lot of solicitations for my opinion. As for this video, it will be more than just signal boosting other people's concerns. Concerns in that last video, by the way, I didn't even really agree with. Although I said as much in that video, I have a feeling that quite a few viewers are stupid. Either way, for those of you who don't know what Skyrim Together is, it's a project that hacks the game to add puppeted NPCs that act like players. The server keeps track of where each player is in their own individual game, and it synchronizes all of the player NPCs to create the illusion of true multiplayer in Skyrim. If or when the project is fully realized, everything should be synchronized, everyone in the same party, the monsters, loot, NPCs, everything. It will be a true Skyrim multiplayer experience if they can get over their technical issues, of which there is no shortage of. Now, I personally was adopting a wait-and-see approach for Skyrim Together. I had a lot of hopes for what the project could become, but at the same time, I was listening to all the people who had serious concerns. That's why I signal boosted those concerns in the last video. Well, then I had the pleasure of interacting with 7 or 8 fans of the project. We're not talking about regular fans like, this seems like a cool project. We're talking about internet warriors defending their favorite thing. They've attached their ego to it, and they desperately want it to succeed. My disposition went from neutral to somewhat negative after dealing with them, and it was totally recoverable until I had the pleasure of interacting with a couple developers on their Discord server. Now I've got actual concerns of my own, but before I voice those, let me pose a question to you. How much money does a project have to make before you start getting professional expectations placed upon you as a member of the project? How much money does your project have to earn before it becomes incumbent upon you to step up and start acting professionally? I realize it's hypocritical of me to ask that question, being that I am the unprofessional jerk that I am. Well, get used to it. I actually set up the infrastructure required to run my YouTube and Twitch channels like a business before I ever started taking donations. I felt this was important not only to protect myself, but to make accounting easier to deal with taxes and things of that nature. Also, I figured if I ever got to the point where I paid other people, like an artist, editor, or voice actor, 2 of which I've done so, I'd want records going from my business accounts so I could write those off as business expenses. And I talk about video games as if they're way more important than they actually are. Have a lot of fun doing that. Criticizing things is also fun, which is why when I levy criticism at things in my serious internet voice, it lends the impression that I really care about these things, when in reality it's like an on-off switch. But as I established, criticizing things is fun. So let's get back to Skyrim Together, because while I'm just a random guy on the internet spewing my opinions, I do have some serious concerns for this project, born from having spoken to and observed the behavior of its developers. So once again I ask, how much money does a project have to make before you start getting professional expectations placed upon you? How much money does your project have to earn before it becomes incumbent upon you to step up and start acting professionally? The developers have been adamant that they are not professionals, that they are just ordinary Skyrim developers. In response to concerns I and others had, they repeatedly stated they do not do PR. It is something they were seemingly proud of. Then going on to say they only say it how it really is. That statement is very public relations, PR. Perhaps not intentionally, but if you didn't want to do PR, you wouldn't be talking to the public. You wouldn't be responding to posts. And yet, 3 times I heard, "We don't waste our time on PR." One of the times I responded with, I don't know of any developer for a major project who does their own PR. I went on to explain to someone else in private that these projects usually have someone dedicated doing PR for them, usually a non-programmer, someone who just wants to help out. They're usually an unpaid position in free projects like this. Being proud of not doing PR is a backwards mentality that shows that they, or should I say, the particular two developers in question from two separate situations, they don't know what they're doing. My personal advice to one of them is to shut up about all things in the project and never talk on Discord about the project again. You know who you are, you're the most vocal on that Discord. Contrary to popular opinion, silence is not affirmation of any accusations. Poorly formed Reddit posts and Discord replies will get people suspicious. The internet is really good at sniffing out inconsistencies. That's because while you think you're just saying that thing that one time has been immortalized in the memory of hundreds or thousands of people, to where they can just go to their log, hit Control F, and type in those magic keywords to find out what you said. Your mistakes transcend time. So, when the community does have concerns, it's very important to get your facts straight, then craft a concise message that is on point and conveys the information directly. Most importantly, it needs to be a consistent message across all of your developers. In other words, your developers probably shouldn't be talking to the public. I mentioned in Discord that a lack of communication is the cause of much of the community's concerns, the things that these homebrew ideas about the sinister motives of the Skyrim Together team, most of it is just lack of communication or bad communication. These community concerns were dismissed out of hand as 10 or 20 salty Redditors. O ye of little faith, the internet's capacity for outrage is far larger than that. Of course, you found that out on your own, didn't you? Now, you may be thinking I'm contradicting myself, telling one or two particular developers to shut up, and then turn around and saying lack of communication is the problem. Well, the problem's like an onion, and it has layers. Lack of communication is the first layer. So we peel that back, and we see them responding to commentary very poorly, very emotionally, very childish, like me. And when I do bad communication, I'm aware of it and do it despite that. I'm not responsible for anyone other than myself and the company that I represent. Now, the company consists of me, and mostly me. I'm only impacting that tiny sphere. But when you, a Skyrim Together developer, speak, you're impacting everyone. The whole project, in fact. And you're coloring people's opinions through action and inaction. These conspiracy theories you're dismissing out of hand are building up because you are causing it, either through action or inaction. You know those times that a developer has responded poorly on Reddit? That could have easily been a PR person who said, asked and answered, here's the link. Or answered from a list of pre-approved answers. You see, the PR guy would bring the most common concerns to the developers, and the developers would respond to each one, and the PR guy would soften them up, make them more palatable to the community. When you say you're going to say it how it is, that's being colored by your bias, and very often colored by your not thinking that issue is an issue at all, when in fact in some people's heads it's a really big issue. That's where the PR person comes in and goes, okay, well, it is a really big issue for it. How can we diffuse the situation in people's heads? We don't want to be condescending to them, telling them, calm down, that's not a problem. Even when you're telling it how it is, it's colored by your attitude. Anyway, this lack of care that the developers have has filtered down into their website as well. At the time of writing this, totally subject to change, but their privacy policy, their disclaimer, terms and conditions, usage restrictions. None of these are actually linked to web pages. They go nowhere. Keep in mind, people have been using the closed beta without an active privacy policy disclaimer or terms and conditions. That's not good. Even websites like ModPicker, for example, have complete privacy policies in place. And that was before anyone started using them. Remember in the previous video where I talked about community concerns about the closed beta going on forever? I didn't believe those theories personally. I signal boosted them anyway for good reason. And then I said I don't really believe them. Well, don't worry everyone. The closed Patreon-only beta is over. How did that happen, you ask? Well, after my previous video, people began to link me a Reddit post claiming that the Skyrim Together team was stealing Skyrim script extender code. The SKSE developer immediately confirmed it. A Skyrim Together developer immediately assured everyone that this was not Skyrim script extender code, but rather a different chunk of code. To which the Skyrim script extender developers then confirmed once again that this code consisted of SKSE code, and therefore was still under SKSE restrictions, meaning it was still stolen. At this point, some of you folks may be asking, how can you steal a mod? A common misconception is, don't all mods belong to Bethesda? Well, thankfully, or unfortunately, depending on how you look at it, we've already answered this question. Back during the Tarshana MXR lawsuit, wherein, in my personal opinion, a crazed mod maker, remember, just my personal opinion there, this particular mod maker sued the YouTube personality MXR over his usage of her mod in his video. The lawsuit was dropped midway, but examining the shenanigans around the case revealed that in Bethesda's Creation Kit user and license agreement, they expressly gave ownership of the mod to the mod maker and have an unlimited use license to use the mod themselves in part or in full. So in other words, if Bethesda wants to use part of your mod, you don't have a right to refuse, provided it was created by the Creation Kit. However, despite that, it is official that Bethesda gives you ownership of your mods, but forbids you from selling them. It applies restrictions to that ownership. But the ownership is still yours, meaning that if you want to defend your intellectual property, you have the right to do so. But guess what, everyone? That EULA doesn't actually apply to either the Skyrim script extender or Skyrim Together. You see, Bethesda's Creation Kit isn't being used in either one of them. They've been created as external tools. Therefore, ownership is held exclusively by these mod makers. And standard intellectual property laws that govern these software apply. I know what you're thinking. I spoke in advocacy of open source in the last video, and then in this video, well, we find out that Skyrim Script Extender isn't open source. But if either one of these projects were open source, this wouldn't have been a problem. If Skyrim Script Extender were open source, then they wouldn't be disputing this use. And if Skyrim Together was open source, then this use would have been found out at the very inception of the project and dealt with before it became an issue. So either way, open source would have cured this. So knowing that Skyrim Script Extender is giving out their source code, but it is not open source, what that actually means is you don't have the right to distribute or use it despite it being free. Getting something for free doesn't mean you have ownership of it in the software world. So it turns out you have to get permission if you want to take parts of SKSE's source and use them. The back and forth between these two parties was very interesting, but I believe in this case that it's smart not to attribute to malice that which can adequately be explained by stupidity on behalf of the Skyrim Together developer, specifically the primary developer, who's been specifically written as prohibited from using the Skyrim Script Extender source code because he disregarded their license in the past. There are misconceptions floating around that Skyrim Script Extender and Skyrim Online were working together in the past. This is a bold-faced lie. In fact, the entire point of contention is that Skyrim Online was using the Skyrim Script Extender source code without permission. When permission was asked, the lead developer of Skyrim Online said that he didn't have to honor the license and that he was going to do it anyway. And that's why he is now banned from using the source code per their license, because he violated it blatantly in the past. He and all his team are banned from that. The Skyrim Online lead developer is in Skyrim Together. Ergo, Skyrim Together does not have permission and will not be granted permission in the foreseeable future unless Skyrim Script Extender team changes their mind. Either way, the "it's not Skyrim Script Extender" code was quickly swapped into an apology. And then folks who do not do PR, they've told me so personally, and they've told one of my friends it personally, and they were proud that they don't do PR. They immediately created a post explaining their position with Bethesda and various other legal things. This was, of course, PR, because PR was required, and they're doing PR despite telling me they don't do PR. Maybe they don't understand they're lying, but they've proven themselves liars here. But it was really telling when I did that last video and they scoffed at those concerns, saying it was just 10 disgruntled people on Reddit. That was while they were sitting atop their pile of 20,000 online users on their Discord. They were sitting proud. From their limited perspective, no concern was valid. Why should they take any of that seriously, you know? Those are crackpot conspiracy theories. We don't have to listen to them. They had blinders on, only seeing part of the criticism. For example, one of the most vocal developers on Discord seemed to think that ending their closed Patreon-only beta and putting the mod into full open beta, that would end all criticism for the project, not realizing it was a multifaceted set of issues, and removing the closed Patreon-only beta was only one issue of many. Either way, after issuing an apology for the stolen Skyrim Script Extender code, they ended their closed Patreon-only beta immediately, updating their Patreon to inform people of that fact. And when that occurred, the Discord server went wild with spam from angry people. Backers angry that the closed Patreon-only beta ended. Countless other people angry that the Skyrim Script Extender code was stolen, or at this point, accidentally kept in the project, with most critics saying it was still stolen. It doesn't matter if the code was inactive inside of the program or not. It was compiled up inside of it, and now they're going to have to work to remove it. Are they going to be able to remove that code easily? Posts from the moderators and general supporters of the project seem to indicate it'll be very easy, whereas some posts from a developer on Reddit seem to indicate that it would be hard, and they are requesting that the Skyrim Script Extender team please let them just use it. So we're getting conflicting reports here. I mean, if they remove it and then it's gone, that's great. And I'm A-okay with that. So, their Discord server running wild. 5 hours of pointless spam. One of the developers watched as this happened, as did several moderators. They all figured they'd rather have the spam than people get mad at censoring them. They were pretty much ignoring any criticism on Discord, just trying to wait it out and let it go away. That is until Khan, the same Khan from the previous video, the man who had been involved in an open source project been used by millions of people, made his case, and they immediately locked down the channel.
They fear this man. They know he sees farther than they, and he will bind them with ancient logics.
The saga continues. As Skyrim Together goes into damage control mode, I, Khan, would like to share with you the story of how and why the Skyrim Together team is so afraid of two simple words: open source. and why those two words were enough to get them to shut down a Discord server with over 80,000 registered users. As all of this began to unfold, the first thing to happen was a flood of people, angry people asking for refunds. Outraged they lost access to the beta that they paid for. One developer even suggested that it was impossible for them to close their Patreon or suspend the ability of people to subscribe and to donate. The response from enthusiastic supporters of Skyrim Together and the moderators on their server was to begin just flooding the chat with spam for hours and hours. And as one moderator put it, the goal was to drown out the bandwagon. After several hours of sustained spamming, Elder Scrolls memes and other nonsense, there was finally an opportunity for people to ask, can we get more details about what happened and how this all came to be? And the team began to talking about why this was all the script extender people's fault, and how the script extender team was childish and immature, how they should have handled it better and treated the developers of Skyrim Together with greater respect. Reach out to them privately. Be discreet. And that is where I came in. Because we knew that the script extender team had had numerous issues with Yamashi, the lead developer of Skyrim Together, dating back to 2012. And it's always the same story. Yamashi had on several occasions taken script extender code and inserted it into his projects without the approval of the script extender team. Given the history that the script extender team had with Yamashi, it didn't seem reasonable to me that they should go out of their way to contact him privately yet again and try to settle things discreetly when they already probably had some preconception of how the conversation would go based on their prior experience with the guy. And that's when I raised the issue of open sourcing the code. The best way to avoid a situation like this is to have the code publicly posted and available for everyone, which would make it so easy for the community to come together and audit the code, make sure there's no issues with it, and even make it better. Immediately, I was told that I would not get the open source, and then a developer came out of the woodwork to close down the entire Discord and say further posts on this topic need to be made on Reddit. So this begs the question, why was I told to shut up, to drop the subject, to never mention open source on the Skyrim Together Discord server? Why was this topic so toxic to the developers? From the way they've behaved throughout this entire affair, it seems to me that Yamashi especially, and probably some of the other developers, have the goal of using Skyrim Together as a portfolio, something they can show to a future employer to land a job somewhere. And they don't understand that it doesn't have to be a secret for people to be impressed by their work. People all the time post things to GitHub and use their GitHub profile as a portfolio when they're looking for a job. Open source doesn't mean it's not valuable. In fact, having the source code published and available online for anybody to look through shows the thoroughness of your work and the quality of your achievement. Yamashi just doesn't understand how these licenses work and how open source culture works. That's why he doesn't respect the script extender team. That's why he says the license is unenforceable. That's why he hides his code away from everybody else. That's why he doesn't want anybody to see what he's doing, because he thinks it will undermine how attractive that achievement is to people he's trying to impress. I don't believe anybody is trying to run a scam or cheat people out of their money or anything like that. At the root of this whole situation is 7 years of misunderstandings between the script extender people and Yamashi. It's devolved into a lot of nastiness and personal grudges between the two parties, but I think it would really benefit Yamashi and Skyrim Together to open source their code, because this totally unnecessary culture of secrecy that they have established has now created a very serious situation where there's the potential for people to feel that they have been victims of fraud.
I don't know what this thing is. All I know is I want to hit it with a rolled up newspaper until it either dies or leaves. Oh, it's my turn again? Okay. Skyrim Together, at the time these shenanigans were just beginning, were making over $35,000 a month. At least, that's how much was being donated. Keep in mind that from this money, it's going to their corporate bank account in France. I'm told that this company is called Tilted Folks, something along those lines. I may be mispronouncing it. The Patreon takes 10%. Then, due to how corporate taxes work in France, they get little less than half of what's been donated. So with the decline in patrons since the ending of their closed beta, let's just say arbitrarily that at this time they were making $34,000. Obviously, it is subject to fluctuations, but let's just assume that $34,000 were being spent by patrons. That translates into about $16,000 for their company, with about $400 going into high-end servers. Now, I have worked with a nonprofit organization myself in the past. We've looked at Amazon servers worldwide, and you could probably get some pretty good servers for half that. But they're going with $400 high-end servers, okay? Good for them. They should, in theory, at that point in time, be banking more than $15,000. So $34,000 in translates to $16,000 minus $400, more than $15,000 every month, in theory, provided they keep getting the level of donations they're getting. But either way, whenever you're looking at their Patreon amount, subtract about half, subtract about $400, and then you'll have the amount they're actually bringing in. I'm really glad the corporate taxes where I am are not nearly that bad. Anyway, the concern many have had during this was that the potential these people were spending money on themselves, cutting themselves a check, as it were. They claim this was not the case, and that it's only going to server costs. Paradoxically, if you check their Patreon, it's also been tagged for computer hardware, plane tickets, and rentals for hackathons. The list is not exhaustive, and yet the vocal people on Discord seem to just say it's going to server costs because contradictions are fun, right? Either way, the list not being exhaustive means that they could be spending money on other things, and it would be completely okay. They seem adamant that the money is not going to themselves, which seems rather odd. The project kneecapped itself by saying what they will and will not spend money on. If they had said nothing, then the people could cut themselves a check as need be, and it wouldn't be a problem. But they made a promise, and now they have to stick to that promise. Of course, I don't think anyone's going to audit them unless there's criminal charges involved. I don't think that's going to happen. I guess a lawsuit might require an audit to see if they are engaging in fraud at the same time, but I don't see a lawsuit happening for fraud. That just wouldn't happen, in my opinion. I'm not giving you legal advice, mind you. I'm just doing armchair here. Anyway, the reason I say they kneecap themselves is because now they're unable to invest the surplus money into a CD or some other growth mechanism which surpasses your standard saving amount. I get it. You just want to be a bunch of people who make Skyrim mods as a hobby online. The problem is you've started to take in enough money to where people are looking at this as a business venture, and they expect the same amount of professionalism giving money to a crowdsourced, funded business venture. And you may view it as just a personal mod project for fun. You may view these as Patreon donations. But there are many people out there who are seeing those donations as crowdfunding. And that's quite frankly what Patreon is at the end of the day. If you understand the concept of patronage, normally a single noble lord, someone who's very rich, would pay for this artist's lifestyle so that he can continue to produce art, just for the sake of the patron being able to take in that art. However, Patreon, what it does is it crowdsources that patronage, allowing 50, 100, 1,000, 10,000 people to give small amounts in order to support the lifestyle or the material costs, whatever, of that particular art form. You just want to be a hobbyist? I understand. And is that fair to you, just wanting to be a hobbyist? Oh, hell no. But reality exists in spite of your personal wishes. No matter what you want, that expectation has been forged, not only by your personal, but your visibly public financial success. That Patreon stands there and creates expectations that you as developers may not want, and you can't help. There are folks who would gladly take $100 a week to be a PR manager for your project. There are other people who would do the job for free, just to ensure the project runs smoothly. They may not have money to donate to your Patreon, but they may have large amounts of time due to them having a physical disability. They may not be able to walk, but they may be able to use a keyboard. And so while they can't get a job in their local area because the job market's prohibitive, they could still sit at their computer and do a damn good job at PR. This arrogant bravado that PR isn't needed, that you can just stick your heads in the sand and ignore the world while reaping the rewards, is unrealistic. Fans of the project are looking for people to blame. A hypocrite like myself, some randoms on the internet, the script extender team. But in reality, the team, the Skyrim Together team, has brought this on themselves through mismanagement of something that is more than just a tiny mod project. But they seem to not understand that fact. I enjoy the Morrowind multiplayer, which is a complete and functional fork of the open Morrowind engine. Because I enjoy that so thoroughly, I'm almost certain that I'm going to enjoy the hell out of Skyrim Together when it comes out. That is, if, as a closed project, it can survive the shenanigans of its own making. Remember the last video where I said most of these projects either get abandoned or die due to internal conflicts? You're starting to see the drama build up and the kind of conflicts that can destroy a project like this. I'm sure that fans of the project may have other arguments, probably rooted in emotion, regarding the misfortune that this project is undergoing. The project needs to right its own wrongs and not look for scapegoats. When Skyrim Together releases in a proper and public capacity without a paywall, if it is of quality, expect me to be one of the first people praising it. Otherwise, well, remember what I said earlier? Criticizing things is fun. Thank you all for watching. Click the links on screen or check out my Twitch channel of the same name for more content. And I'll see y'all next time.